What's up out there? We are back with the Boneshatter of Carnage build that I started working on, I don't know, here a week ago, I guess? I don't know, I've kind of lost track of it. 2 weeks ago, maybe? I've spent all week working on this thing. I got level 7. From my notes, it looks like on Tuesday, today is Friday, on Tuesday I put a note down that said that I was at level 79. I am currently at level 90. So I've spent a lot of time in Delve and I'm kind of getting tired of it. But for the showcase of this video here, we'll go run through Delve. There's like a boss area or something around here, an outpost that I'm looking for. I don't know if that's a boss or just like a little loot room. I can't remember. But I think we are in depth 100. Yeah, depth 100. So monster level 79. When I'm trying to level, I try to stay about 10 levels low. Really, I should be at level 80 monsters right now, but this seems to be doing okay. Like, I don't know, I've got about 10% XP here in the last couple. I've ran through a couple of these different nodes, but I've made some changes. This build is one that I found on PoE Ninja. I was curious what people were doing with Boneshatter of Carnage. Like, when I went in and did one of my lab runs, it gave me Boneshatter of Carnage, which is what happened last league. And last league, I put that on my Slayer build and let it run. The cool thing about Boneshatter of Carnage is it doesn't have trauma on it. So you can let that, if you can get enough attack speed, you can attack hellaciously fast. Now, it doesn't do a lot of damage. It's like death by a million paper cuts. So it's not great by any means. I don't think I want that. So I couldn't really make it do anything last league. And I was kind of curious once I got it this league. I was like, well, you know, has anybody figured out how to make this thing do something? I think I've already got this. I think I've got that and I don't need it. So I was kind of running around. I was going to try to figure out how to get to this outpost here, but I'll run back to town here. We can go chat about this build. I am currently level 90 with this. I've got DPS is okay. Like, I need to get the DPS brought up significantly. We have 770 strength and a little bit of dex, a little bit of int. So this build is kind of interesting the way this scales your Boneshatter damage. So we're using Boneshatter of Carnage, which this thing, the pulse has 20% increased area of effect per 0.1 stun duration up to 400%. So I believe this is the only one that does this, and it's got a chance to double stun duration, 39% chance to double stun duration. So basically on the passive tree, you're taking a lot of things that involve stun. And I can't remember where all of those are, but I feel like there was some up in this section. Like, you're taking this here, chance to block while wielding with staff. I thought there was some in here, critical strikes. I thought there was some stun items up in here. Either I didn't take them or, oh, it's this here. So you get a chance to do some stun. Yeah, I guess it was this wheel right here that I was thinking about. I don't think the person took this. So increased stun duration, things like that. I might try to come over into this at some point and see how it goes, because it wouldn't be too far off the beaten path. But then you've got, I don't remember what all they had on their build. I know they came out like this does, and they took this attribute for utmost might, which gives you increased 8% increased strength plus 40 strength, and then they took this 5% increased attributes. I thought it was weird that they took this until I looked at this Pillar of the Cage God Iron Staff. This thing has 16% increased physical weapon damage per 10 strength. So you're really trying to stack as much strength as you can to build up as much damage as you possibly can. So that's why they took this, and this actually goes from this specific unique, because this thing gives you area of effect for int, it gives you attack speed per dex, and damage per 10 strength, or per strength. So I kind of like the concept of this. They had some other oddball things on here, like I think they had Blood and Sand, which I believe, I thought Blood and Sand was really only for the skills that the skill gems that let you change stances. It looks like they were using that for area of effect and trying to increase the size. So I've learned this after the fact. I did not think that applied to, I thought Blood and Sand only applied to certain skill gems. I think it might apply to all all physical skill gems, and it just increases the area. I haven't tested that theory yet, but I was looking at that. I did not put that gem in here. I believe they 5-linked the weapon and then brought it down here. So for me, I put Ancestral Protector and multiple totems. For some reason, I don't think they had multiple totems on their build, which I don't know how that worked because they also had Ancestral War Chief in their build. And if you have both Ancestral Protector and Ancestral War Chief, you're basically choosing between the two unless you get multiple totems, which then lets you have multiple totems, for lack of a better word. They also had some other things, like they did Behead support, so I swapped Behead support out for faster attacks. I didn't really get Behead support all that much. I didn't understand what it was supposed to do. It's kind of an interesting skill. Like, you can actually get, where is that thing in here? I want to get the right terminology off of it. So I got mine to level 19. It gives you increased plus 0.3 meters to melee strike range. Skills deal 48% more damage with hits and ailments against enemies on low life, which is probably helpful. Killing blows from supported strike skills with melee weapons against rare monsters grant one of their modifiers for 20 seconds. And then 20% chance to refresh duration of granted modifier by up to 5 seconds when you hit a rare or unique with supported skills. So it's kind of interesting. I guess it gives you 48% more damage when enemies are on low life. I guess that's the big thing for it. What I did is I came over to this. No, not this. This is one that they put in their build. There was something. Oh, I came down to this. So they did not come down here to Executioner. I chose to come over here to Executioner. Let me go back up for just a second. What they did on their build was come off of these large jewel sockets with a bunch of stuff, and this one over here with a bunch of stuff. And I think they were coming off of this jewel socket here, and then this one here, and maybe this one up here. So they were coming in with a bunch of jewel sockets. The basic passive tree is kind of what I have here, minus this section here and a little bit of this up here. But I decided, instead of going into these for the moment, instead of going into the cluster jewels and all that, I didn't at the moment I didn't have enough of the orbs of alteration to really go into all that and do something with it. So I opted to do something different, and I came over here into this section, which gives you a bunch of extra damage with two-handed weapons, and then increased area of effect. And then this one gives you 60% increased damage with hits against enemies that are on low life. So instead of getting the 48% increase that the Behead gives you, I went with this, and I switched the Behead out for this faster attack support so I would attack a little faster. And then I also took the two-handed mastery, which is 40% increased damage with hits against rare and unique enemies. So that should be a decent stack of extra damage. So I'm not really dealing as much damage as normal Boneshatter at the moment. I'm working on it. I'm still trying to figure out this build. So in the last video that I did, before I get into all of that, I did finish off my extra lab run, so I've got all those done. That is completed. And I also picked up, in the last lab run I did, I got this Leap Slam of Groundbreaking. I figured I would try it out. I was using Leap Slam anyway. I got this, so I thought, oh, what the hell, I'll throw it on here. So damaging hits always stun enemies that are on full life. So this thing actually has 78% increased stun duration against enemies that are on full life. So when you hit with this thing here, it actually does some more stun. I thought that was kind of cool, and I thought it might synergize a little bit with what I've got here. So I've got that with faster attack support, and it's life tapped, and then Berserk is life tap on here. I'm running really low on mana. I just super low on mana, so I've had to life tap a few things here and there. We've got our I did switch out. I can't remember what they had, but I switched out to cast 1 damage taken with Molten Shell and Vulnerability. So I've got cast 1 damage taken leveled up a little bit here, and I did this with my other Boneshatter build. From what I read, you can upgrade your support gems all the way. These don't matter on the cast 1 damage taken. You just can't level the gems that you're using on cast 1 damage taken beyond level 42 in this case, where I've leveled up to. So I could probably do one more level of vulnerability, but I didn't feel like messing with it, getting that close. Molten Shell, they're both under, they're not equal to, so I figured that's good enough. And let's see here. We've got our usual Pride, War Banner, and Determination. And a few videos ago, I had mentioned having an Enlightened support gem. So I've got this thing. I've got it on here. This doesn't really do much for mana reservation at level 2. Now, it's about to roll over to level 3, so I'll see if that does anything more. But I'm curious. I'm curious what this thing does. It seems to help slightly, just a slight amount. But I was so low on my mana reservation, I had to go ahead and use this. This is something I used on my other build, which gives me 2% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. So that's with this thing here. I get a little bit more mana reservation efficiency and some Ellie res, a little bit of damage and some strength out of it. But really, I put this on here for the mana reservation. So that helps out. I've got a decent amount more of mana. And between the life tapping and the Enlightened support and then this here, I've got a decent amount of mana, a mana pool to use. Let's see, what do we got up in the helmet? We've got Arrogance, Vitality, Culling Strike, and so Arrogance and Vitality. The Arrogance puts the Vitality over on the health side, so you don't have to reserve mana for it. That's another thing that you'd take off of this. And on the Ancestral War Chief, I tossed Culling Strike, so that this has a chance to just start killing stuff a little bit early on. I thought that would be a good thing to have. So we've got almost unreserved 4,000 life, basically somewhere in that realm. It's doing fairly well. I've got most of my flasks set to use when on charges full, gain 2 charges, that usual thing. I don't have this one here for damage. I wanted to use this one. It's used when chill because I ran out of that currency, which I do have some more. So let's see if we can roll this to, well, no, that's not going to work. I should have left it on used when adjacent goes off and then it would just go off. So resistance wise, this thing is golden. I don't have to worry about resistances. Chaos res is non-existent. But I've got 83,000 armor the way this stands with this is one of the armor ones. So we've got about 100,000 armor. I've got 90% physical damage reduction. We've got life regen of 1,089, which goes up to 2,000. Oh, that jumps up there for a second here every once in a while. We'll get into that here in a second. But for the Boneshatter of Carnage, we are running Rage support, increased duration, brutality, faster attacks, and trauma support. So even though they've taken the trauma support out of Boneshatter, we put it back in as another skill gem. So at some point you're wondering why not just run the regular gem? And I don't know, maybe I'll tinker around with that and see how that goes. This is basically a stun build, and I haven't been able to get a definitive answer on whether stun actually does more damage or it just leaves them stunned so they're not attacking you. So you can basically come in and wail on them pretty good and move on. I'm not sure on that exactly. I've read it, but it just doesn't seem like it has. I didn't get the answer I wanted out of it. Anyway, so I got the passive tree built up, I got the unique that I needed, and I started working on this build. And in the last video, I think I was at level 70 or something like that. I was fairly low level. And I mentioned that I wasn't sure how to scale this build a little bit and that I needed like some jewels or something. And I wasn't really paying attention to it all that well. And somebody commented on that I could actually get these unique jewels if I go in here and run Vol Orbs on them, which I knew that from a different build. I just didn't realize how many there were. And I didn't realize some of the choices we've got. Like I got some of these crappy ones with minus whatever charges or whatever. But then like I've got this Fertile Mind with plus 23 int, and then it transforms Dex nodes into int. And then we've got some other stuff on here. Strength one, it's intelligence, transformed to strength, stuff like that. There's some really cool stuff. Well, I ended up finding one that is 17% increased armor, and it increases in reductions to energy shield in radius are transformed to apply to armor at 200% of their value. So this is the Energized Armor Crimson Jewel. It turned out to be just absolutely perfect because in this area is a node over here, which is armor and energy shield. So I now get 18% increased armor from that, 20% from this one, and then 42% increased armor from this one. So that is huge. This is 18 and 12% increased, 18% armor and 12% increased max energy shield. I tossed that thing in and all of a sudden I got 42% armor. So I thought this was great. And I think there might have been some other nodes. I can't remember. But basically I took those because that was armor and energy shield. I wasn't sure if I could take a mastery off of that and get it to apply, but I took these. It gives me a big stack of armor. I thought that was really cool. I'm not sure if there's a better place for it, but this seemed like as good a place as any. And then also deviating from, did this one have that? I feel like there was a couple of more. Yeah. So this is another node, 8% increased armor, 5% increased max energy shield, 15% increased armor. I was gonna say, I thought there was a couple of nodes. So you've got this wheel over here, and then this wheel up here. I've got another one I could take over here that would give me a few more points in this. So I thought that was pretty cool. You get a lot of extra armor out of that. One more point up there, and potentially another point down here. I don't think this one counts. So I could get some more armor out of it, but I started doing other things. Instead of putting all my points into armor, I came down here and started working down this way here towards Executioner and this two-hand mastery. And then the last thing I started working on, or the latest thing that I've worked on with level 87, 88, and 80, or I'm sorry, 88, 89, and 90 would be these nodes here for life regen, and surge of vigor. So that lets you regen a lot quicker. Another jewel that I found, I found one that did magic, or I'm sorry, int. It would swap int out. And I tried that one over here because I had this one node that would switch over. So I would get 10 strength here. I think my jewel had whatever strength was on it, plus another 10 over here. However, I got to looking at the other jewels that I had, and one of them was this one, which is plus 23 strength, and then dex from passives and radius is transformed to strength. So I've got 1, 2 inside here, so these give me to strength, and I can also come down here and pick up a couple of more. So I could actually do 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4, pick up a bunch of extra damage in there, and that's basically stacking this strength up quite a bit higher and doing more damage. I can't remember what I did with POB. I was kind of debating on whether I wanted to, so realistically, I would get 5 more levels. I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, and come down here on the frenzy side, maybe come down here on the endurance side. I wasn't sure which one I would do. I could also take and go into these nodes here and just get some extra strength out of it, see how that goes. I need to POB it and make my choice there. I could also come into here and do extra damage and then pick up this and come off of this node. I think I'm pretty well set on where I want to be as far as my passive tree goes. Aside from maybe these two, I could add some life here. We could add some armor. Damage is what I need to build up, and I need to figure out how to scale my damage up. From what I gather and what they did is they came off of these jewel sockets and came out that way. I don't know what I would be giving up though, because there's a lot of like endurance charge on hit, maybe lust for carnage, but that gives me attack speed. If I take away diamond skin, I lose the big chunk of Ellie res, which is nice to have. I lose a big chunk of armor off of this side over here. So I'm not real keen on some of this. Although I suppose I could take my life regen down here. I'd have to see how much difference that makes. Go into POB and see whether this is that's a lot of life regen up there. I don't know. I'm kind of just theory crafting at this point, but I have spent a ton of time working in Delve, leveling this up. I need to see what my POB says. I think it's up without like configuring anything. I think it's like 600,000 or 800,000 DPS. It's not necessarily the 1.6 or 2 million that my other Boneshatter build has. So, I don't know, I may need to scale some more things. I did get some other jewels in here, but I don't have anything. Like, I got some extra ones with damage, but then they add fire damage, and these don't add up more damage than what I've already got. So that's kind of where I've got this build. But I'm kind of getting burned out on playing this right now. This is probably about the point where I would start a new character, but I got some other games and stuff I want to play. It is now the weekend. I've gotten to level 90. I wanted to get this node, this Surge of Vigor in here just to get that in. I've got my passive tree pretty much where I'd like it to be at the moment. What I'll probably end up doing is coming over here and getting this jewel socket, maybe getting this jewel socket, and then I'll be able, or something like that, and then maybe seeing what I can work up with jewels. But I'm going to take a break. I got to do something other than Path of Exile for this weekend at least. Just take a little bit of time off, maybe go play some Tarkov, play some other games, do some other things that I've been working on. But I wanted to get this video out and show off where the build is currently, and then get caught up here. That way I can take a couple days off, just relax, get away from this, get away from Delve for a little bit, and then hopefully come back and do something really positive with this build. On the one hand, I have taken basically a week of not progressing into any of the bossing or any of that stuff. But on the other hand, I've kind of tried out a new build that I think is kind of cool. Would I league start this build? No. The problem is you absolutely have to have this unique staff. And if you don't get this unique staff, you're kind of screwed. Actually, it hinges on two things. Number one, you have to have this unique staff. That's what this builds on. And number two, you have to have this Boneshatter of Carnage. And that means you have to go through labs and get this, or run labs until you get this, and have that unique. So you can't just, like my other Boneshatter build is much easier to just build, because you can just take a two-handed axe and go through the game. You can build up whatever armor and stuff you want. What I am considering on this, and what is kind of interesting, is building off of the left side of the tree here. So with the other build, I go down here to Iron Reflexes, and we basically want to have armor and evasion on everything. So that one goes into all the prismatic skin, and we go down into this wheel here. And there's what was the other wheel that we use? Oh, over on here, instead of taking +1 armor per 2 strength, you're taking +1% to all Elirez if equipped. Helmet, body armor, gloves, and boots all have armor. What I like about this build is that it stacks strength for 1. That's kind of an interesting thing. But again, that's because that staff needs the strength stacked. But what I really like about it is how much armor this offers, and this regen node up here, as well as this regen here. Like, I could put 3 more points into regen, put some more points into armor. Like, seriously, I could put they're level 91, 92, 93, and then we could go into 94 and 95 and have just a tremendous amount of, maybe even 96, get up more health, more armor. Like, that's kind of a little bit of armor and a little bit of strength stacking. I also kind of considered maybe trying to go up into, well, like putting points out here and just getting more strength. Like, I could get, there's strength there, there's strength there. So there would be 91, 92. This would convert to strength 93, convert to strength 94, and convert to strength 95. Now that's adding 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 strength to this. So I'd be over 800 strength. I'd have to see what the damage numbers do, but I don't know, a couple of options there. The other thing I thought about doing, and I almost came down into the totem side, which is what I would normally do with the other Boneshatter build. Instead of coming down here, I would have actually came down through here and picked up Ironwood and Panopticon, because this gives you not only totem damage, but Taxials have +1 maximum number of summoned ballista totems, 50% increased buffs, and then you can take this thing in here, which gives you buffs from your active ancestor totems linger for 3 seconds longer. I opted not to do this. They didn't do that on their build, and I opted not to do that as well in favor of this as more damage. So I am kind of intrigued on what this would do, what this, with all the armor and the, you've got two-handed stuff. Like, I wouldn't need to take this mace section up here, but you're picking up this two-handed kinetic impacts. You've got like the executioners over here. You could do wrecking ball. That's what you typically take with the other. Of course, this increases stun duration. Maybe that's what I should have taken. Tried that out. But this one here is what you typically take. This side of the wheel is typically what you would take on the other build that I'm playing for the other Boneshatter with an axe. And then you would come up in here to hatchet mastery and stuff like that. So they're not that far off. It's just the other build that I'm using comes over here to precise technique. You've got freedom of movement or weathered hunter somewhere in that realm over here. The other thing I considered was actually coming over into these like hard knocks and proficiency, get 30 extra int, 30 extra dex. So this jewel socket does not overlap any of those. That kind of sucks. That'd be cool to like smash that strength in there. But I thought about increasing my attack speed and my area of attack here and seeing how that goes. That's, 4 points away from that. I don't know. There's a lot of different options, but I could see this working for the other Boneshatter build that I have, because you're in the neighborhood of pretty much everything that the other build does. Like, I wouldn't need this wheel here for strength. I could come down here and go into Wrecking Ball, or we could go over to whatever else, the totem side or something like that, and see how that goes. But with all this regen that's on here, the other cool thing is I don't know how comparable this trauma support is to the actual trauma that's in Boneshatter, like the real Boneshatter. But I've had this thing up to like 20 stacks, and I've not been taking damage. So I've got enough recovery to totally come through that. Whereas with the other Boneshatter build, I don't come up to nearly any of this recovery stuff. In fact, I don't even think we come up to disemboweling. I think we might come up to hardy and barbarism and juggernaut, but that might be the extent. Juggernaut might even be, I don't remember how far up it goes, but the other build goes over to the right. So at a minimum, it might be kind of worth shifting things over to this side because of the armor and the recovery and all that. This might be the better way to run Boneshatter in general, and this isn't that far off if I wanted to regret orb off these sections here and maybe even this stuff and try to just pick up some of the other two-handed stuff. So anyway, I don't know, kind of dwelling on this for a second, but it's a lot of, we're compressing a week's worth of stuff into, a long amount of time. But anyway, that is the update that I have for this week. And I may try this build for my Boneshatter next league. Not for the unique and not for the Boneshatter of Carnage, but for the armor and the health and all that, because like I said, a lot of this is the same as what you take normally. So if I could take all this, like come through here for the first few levels and then come down and pick all this up and then start swinging up this way, like that might not be a bad way to route the build. And that keeps me with Boneshatter, but gives me a little bit more survivability. So anyway, it's probably been a long video. That will do it for this one. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.